Have you ever stopped to think that some of the greatest tragedies in history didn't come from bombs, wars, or nuclear explosions, but from something we feed every single day? That while you're watching this video, a silent kind of disaster is growing, gaining strength, and changing the planet in a way you probably wouldn't even want to believe. Today, on Truth Explosion, you're going to see how humanity is triggering its own downfall, and the most shocking part, this could have been avoided. And at the end, I'm going to reveal the most dangerous disaster of all and who the real culprits are. Spoiler, it's not you, it's not me. Take a deep breath and come with me.
Number 1. The origin of the climate collapse. Since the first humans walked the Earth, the tragedies caused by us were isolated events. Huge disasters, yes, but still isolated. The explosion in Chernobyl, the radioactive lake of Karachai, the atomic bombs that destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But today, nothing is isolated anymore. Chaos has become routine. Tragedies are happening everywhere at the same time, as if the planet were collapsing in perfect synchronization. And this collapse has a name: climate imbalance. With the accumulation of greenhouse gases, the atmosphere is acting like a giant blanket, trapping the heat that should be escaping into space. And what happens when heat can't leave? Everything changes. On one side, entire regions burn under brutal heat waves. On the other, territories freeze as if they belong to another planet. Extreme droughts burn forests and evaporate rivers, while absurd rainfalls drown cities in hours. And this chaotic environment creates the monsters we call extreme weather events. Hurricanes, typhoons, floods, violent storms, deadly heat waves, and even spontaneous wildfires. The seasons no longer make sense. The planet lost its balance, and we lost the sense of how big this problem really is. Today, I'll show you some tragedies that happened in the last few years, tragedies that you may not even know are connected to climate change. But before that, you need to understand that this is not about the planet, it's about us.
Number 2, the hurricane that shut down an entire country. Puerto Rico, 2017. In 2017, Hurricane Maria, Category 5, one of the strongest ever recorded, hit Puerto Rico with force straight out of an apocalyptic movie. The country literally went dark. Over 3,000 people died, not because of the immediate destruction, but because the healthcare system completely collapsed. Hospitals stopped functioning, communications fell, water and electricity disappeared. Imagine spending 84 days without power, 68 days without drinking water, 41 days without any cell signal. Entire families were isolated, without medical care, without food, without information. People who could have survived simply didn't. And the scariest part? Studies show that global warming intensified the hurricane, making it far deadlier than it would have been under normal conditions. In other words, this tragedy wasn't just a natural disaster, it was a disaster amplified by us.
Number 3. The summer when Europe fermented, 2022. Let me ask you something. Can you imagine 61,000 people dying just because of the heat? It happened. Not decades ago, recently. The summer of 2022 was the worst in modern European history. Hospitals collapsed, emergency rooms overflowed. Entire cities had to be evacuated because it was literally impossible to breathe. The peaceful European landscape turned into a boiling cauldron. Rivers dried up. Fields caught fire on their own. People dehydrated in minutes. And the reason is simple and brutal. Heat waves today are far more intense because of the absurd amount of gases we're releasing into the atmosphere. The greenhouse effect, that concept you heard in school and thought was silly, is now killing thousands. Governments weren't ready. Health systems weren't ready. And the population, even less.
Number 4. The ice that's melting before our eyes. When you think of Antarctica or Greenland, the image is always the same: white, frozen, silent. But that image is getting outdated. In Greenland alone, about 266 billion tons of ice melt per year. In Antarctica, another 135 billion tons disappear. But what does that actually mean? More water in the oceans, entire coastal cities at real risk of disappearing, like Salvador, Recife, Santos, and many others around the world. And it gets worse. When ice melts, the planet loses its white surface that reflected sunlight. What's left is dark surfaces, soil and water that absorb heat. And the more heat the oceans absorb, the more they become gigantic ovens that destroy corals, fish, marine mammals, birds, and entire ecosystems that depend on stable temperatures. The planet is literally melting from the inside.
Number 5. The Brazil that drowned. Floods in Rio Grande do Sul, 2024. 2024 marked one of the saddest and most shocking moments in Brazil's recent history. Rio Grande do Sul lived through weeks of pure chaos. Torrential rains swallowed entire cities. Streets turned into rivers. Homes disappeared underwater. In total, 360,000 people affected, 20,000 displaced, 4,500 left with nothing. People who lost everything: memories, documents, jobs, family. And before someone says it was climate bad luck, remember, events like this are becoming stronger and more frequent because of climate change. The climate is becoming unpredictable, violent, extreme. And the worst? This is only the beginning.
Number 6. The heat waves that killed silently in Brazil. Between 2000 and 2018, Brazil recorded 48,000 deaths caused by heat waves, almost 50,000 people. That's the population of an entire small city gone. And even with such a terrifying number, many still say scientists are exaggerating about how close we are to a critical point in the planet's health. But science is clear. The numbers are clear. Reality is screaming.
Number 7. The real culprits, and it's not us. In September this year, a study published in Nature brought a shocking revelation. Deadly heat waves are directly linked to the 180 companies that emit the most carbon on the planet. These companies are known as the carbon majors. They are responsible for most of the global emissions of oil, natural gas, and coal. And here's the terrifying number. Heat waves have become 200 times more likely because of emissions from these companies. Want another shock? The brutal heat wave that hit Brazil in 2010, affecting Minas Gerais, Rio de Janeiro, and São Paulo, would not have happened without the climate crisis caused by them. Meaning, it's not your fault. It's not my fault. The blame rests in the hands of a few extremely powerful companies. And that's why we need to understand what actually needs to be done.
Number 8. What can really change anything? For decades, they insisted that the solution was everyone doing their part. Recycling, saving water, using less energy. Yes, that helps, but it's nowhere near enough. There's no point in individuals being perfect in a system that is fundamentally flawed. Real change needs to happen at the top. Governments, big industries, billion-dollar corporations. These are the sectors that determine the planet's climate future. And you might be thinking, okay, but how can I help if I have no power? The answer is simple. Pressure. Talk about it. Share videos like this. Demand real policies. Join discussions. Spread information. That's how change begins. Does it seem small? It's not. The more people raise their voices, the harder it becomes for governments and corporations to ignore.
Number 9. Renewable energy, what already exists but isn't used. The most absurd part of all of this is that the solution already exists. The technology is here. Solar energy, wind energy, hydropower, biofuels, geothermal. All of it works. All of it is viable. And in many cases, it's already cheaper than fossil fuels. What's missing? Political will, corporate will. And when will is missing, neglect takes its place. And neglect kills. According to the same study, more than 50 deadly heat waves could have been avoided if these companies had reduced their emissions in recent years. 50 heat waves, thousands of lives saved. The planet isn't asking for the impossible, it's asking for responsibility.
Number 10. The race against the point of no return. There's a concept widely discussed by scientists: tipping points. These are climate thresholds which, once crossed, make reversing the damage impossible. It's like pushing something to the edge of a cliff, and then it finally falls. After that, there's no going back. In many of these tipping points, such as glacier collapse, the death of tropical forests, and permanent changes in ocean currents, are dangerously close.
COP30, the UN's global climate conference, exists precisely to prevent humanity from crossing these red lines. Nearly 200 countries gather to negotiate emission reductions, forest protection, international agreements, and climate aid for vulnerable nations. It's literally a meeting to decide the future of life on Earth. And yet, few people know. Even fewer care. And many ignore the signs. That's why this video exists. Because you deserve to know. And because change needs informed people. It's now or never. This video isn't about spreading fear. It's about opening your eyes. The planet doesn't need us to survive. Earth adapts, it changes, it regenerates. But we don't. Climate change is not about saving the planet. It's about saving the lives on it, including yours. Time is running. Consequences are unfolding. Ignoring it won't stop anything. Change begins with awareness and with action. If you've made it this far, it's because you care, and that already matters. Now I want to know, do you think we are doing our part, or is there still a long way to go? Comment below, let's talk about it. And of course,